It's a strange game we play. We spend our lives trying to repair ourselves, as though we were somehow damaged, forever polishing the mask we show the world. We wear it proudly, hoping no one will notice the cracks beneath, the cracks we've worked so hard to hide. But here's the thing. Those cracks, those imperfections, they're not weaknesses, they're invitations. Invitations to something greater than the perfect, polished versions of ourselves we've been chasing all our lives. The world teaches us to strive for perfection. We're told from a young age that to be whole, we must look, act, think, and live in a way that fits the mold. We're expected to be strong, successful, and composed, never showing our wounds, never letting anyone see the places where we've been broken. It's as though our brokenness is a flaw, something to be ashamed of. So we work tirelessly, desperately, to fill the gaps and smooth out the jagged edges. We think that if we just try harder, if we work longer, we'll finally be good enough, worthy enough, to be seen and loved. But what if that effort, that constant striving for perfection, is exactly what's keeping us from seeing the truth? The truth that life, in all its beauty, is not a straight path. It is a dance full of rhythm, full of dissonance, full of joy and sorrow. A dance that cannot happen unless we let go of the idea that we need to control every step, that we need to be perfect to participate. Alan Watts often spoke of life as a game, a dance, a play. And in play, there is no victory to be won, no finish line to cross. There is only the joy of movement, the freedom to express. The moment we stop trying to perfect ourselves, to polish our masks, we begin to experience life as it truly is. Not as something we need to control, but as something we are part of, something that flows through us. We stop seeing ourselves as fractured beings in need of repair, and begin to recognize that our very flaws, the very things we try to hide, are not mistakes. They are the essence of who we are. And in that essence, the universe is waiting to work through us. So, why do we cling so desperately to the idea of perfection? Why do we fear our cracks? Perhaps it's because we've been taught that perfection is the standard, that only the unbroken are worthy of love, of success, of happiness. But what if that's not true? What if the cracks in our character aren't flaws at all? What if they're the openings through which something much greater than ourselves can flow? What if, in our brokenness, we become the perfect vessel for the universe to work through? The more we try to hide our cracks, the more we deny ourselves the grace that can only enter through those very openings. Life doesn't need us to be perfect. It needs us to be real. The universe doesn't look for the flawless. It looks for the broken, the open, the willing, because it's through the cracks that life finds its way in. And so, we return to the game, the dance, the paradox. We are already whole, not because we've perfected ourselves, but because we've allowed ourselves to be cracked open. It is in our damage that we find the space to become who we were always meant to be. Let me know your thoughts on this part, and once approved, I'll move on to the next section. There is a peculiar kind of beauty in broken things. The vase that's been chipped, the mirror with a crack down the center, the tree that's weathered the harshest storms and yet stands tall. We often look at these things and see imperfection, something wrong, something lost. But in reality, it is only in the cracks that the light can enter. Think about a cup. If it's perfectly sealed, it can hold nothing but air. But the moment it cracks, the tiniest opening lets something new in. Water, light, the life-giving forces that were always meant to fill it. This is the paradox of life. We spend so much time trying to fill our cracks with the things we think we need: status, approval, accomplishments, believing that if only we can fix ourselves, we'll be whole. But the truth is, it is only through our cracks, through our brokenness, that life can enter us. And in that entry, something magical happens. When you accept your cracks, when you stop trying to hide the damage, you create the space for something far greater to fill you. You stop clinging to the illusion that you must be perfect, that you must be whole before you can receive life's gifts. The gifts were never meant for the perfect vessel. They were always meant for the cracked one, the one who understands that their strength doesn't lie in their perfection, but in their willingness to be imperfect, to be open. You see, damage does not disqualify you. It qualifies you. The more you embrace your damage, the more you are ready to be used by life. Because life is not asking for perfection. It's asking for you to show up as you are, to allow your cracks to remain open, so that the universe can work through you. Consider this. Throughout history, the people who have made the most profound changes in the world were not those who had it all together. No, they were the ones who had been to the edge, who had looked into the abyss and come back shattered, trembling. Moses, they say, had a speech impediment. He could barely speak, and yet he was chosen to speak the words of God. The universe didn't need him to be perfect. It needed him to be open, to be real, to acknowledge his own limitations. And in that acknowledgement, he became the perfect vessel for something much greater than himself. David, too, was chosen not despite his flaws, but because of them. A small shepherd boy, overlooked by everyone, considered weak and insignificant, became the great king. Not because he was perfect, but because he never forgot where he came from, never forgot the brokenness that was his true power. His crack was not a flaw. It was the very thing that allowed him to be used by life in a way that someone without cracks could never have been. And Paul, the great apostle, was a murderer. He hunted down the very people whose cause he would later champion. Can you imagine the weight of that? The guilt, the shame, the unbearable knowledge that he had destroyed lives. Yet it was precisely this brokenness, this awareness of his own capacity for evil, that made him such a powerful teacher. He understood that grace didn't come to those who thought they had it all together, but to those who were broken enough to realize they could not do this life on their own. So, what if the damage you carry is not something to hide, but something to embrace? What if the cracks in your character are not flaws, but the openings through which grace can flow? What if your very brokenness, the thing you have always tried to fix, is exactly what the universe needs from you? It is only in the brokenness that we find our true power. The damage we've experienced, the wounds we've carried, are not the end of us. They are the beginning of something new. The universe doesn't choose us because we are perfect. It chooses us because we are open. And it is through our cracks that the light pours in. So, what if we stop trying to fix ourselves? What if we stop pretending that we are something we are not? What if we allowed ourselves to be broken, fully and completely? In that breaking, we will discover the beauty of our own vulnerability, the power of our own imperfection. And it is in that power, in that openness, that the universe can finally begin to work through us. Let me know your thoughts on this part. Once approved, I'll continue to the next. In a world that constantly demands strength, certainty, and self-sufficiency, it's easy to believe that weakness is something to be ashamed of, something to hide. We have been conditioned to believe that only the self-made, the self-sufficient, the invulnerable are worthy of success, happiness, and love. But what if the opposite were true? What if the most profound wisdom and power come from acknowledging that we are not in control, that we cannot navigate this life alone? Insecurity, vulnerability, and uncertainty are often seen as signs of weakness, but they are not. They are the keys to a deeper, more authentic way of living. The universe does not need us to be invincible, self-sufficient, or flawless. It needs us to be real, to be human, to recognize our own limitations and embrace the fact that we are part of something far greater than ourselves. When we accept our insecurity, when we acknowledge our limitations, we open ourselves to something deeper than mere personal achievement. We stop struggling to maintain control and allow ourselves to trust in the flow of life. This is where the wisdom of insecurity lies. It's not in the certainty that we have it all figured out, but in the humility of realizing that we never will, and that this is okay. In fact, it's more than okay. It's liberating. Look at the great spiritual teachers, the ones who have made the most profound impact on humanity. None of them were self-made. None of them were without insecurity. Take the Buddha, who questioned his place in the world, sought peace, and struggled with his own limitations. Or Jesus, who despite his divinity, expressed his human vulnerability in moments of anguish. They were not perfect, and they did not pretend to be. It was in their openness, in their recognition of their own limitations, that the wisdom of the universe was able to work through them. Insecurity is not a curse, it is a blessing. It's an invitation to surrender, to trust, to lean into something larger than ourselves. In our insecurity, we are not weak. We are simply awake to the reality of our dependence on the universe, on others, on the intricate dance of life itself. And it is in this awareness, in this surrender, that we find our true strength. The universe does not look for the self-made individual, the one who believes they have all the answers. It looks for the person who knows they don't, who is willing to admit they are flawed, vulnerable, and incomplete. Because in that admission, in that openness, the universe can work through them in ways it never could through someone who is too full of themselves, too tightly bound by their own image of strength. In that humility, we find the freedom to let go of the illusion of control. We stop resisting the flow of life and instead move with it, trusting that everything that happens is part of a greater unfolding. It's not about being perfect, it's about being open. The wisdom of insecurity is this: when we stop clinging to the idea that we must have it all figured out, we finally allow ourselves to live freely, to be used by life in ways we never thought possible. And so, insecurity becomes not a burden to bear, but a gift to be cherished. Insecurity is the door through which grace enters. It is the space where vulnerability and strength coexist, where the universe can work through us. Because, as Alan Watts often said, life is not a problem to be solved, but a mystery to be lived. And we live that mystery most fully when we accept that we do not have all the answers, that we are not self-sufficient, and that we are part of something far greater than ourselves. Let me know your thoughts on this part. Once approved, I'll continue to the next. We are taught from a young age that life is about overcoming adversity, about rising above our struggles and emerging victorious, shining with the light of self-made success. But what if that's not how transformation works? What if the very things we perceive as weaknesses, as damage, are not obstacles to our greatness but the essential ingredients of our transformation? The universe does not choose the perfect, the flawless. It chooses the broken, the damaged, the ones who have been to the edge and come back. It chooses those who know, in the deepest part of their being, that they cannot do this life alone, that they are not invincible, that they need help. It is in this recognition, in this surrender, that they become the perfect vessels for something greater to work through them. The truth is, your damage does not disqualify you. It qualifies you. Look at the great spiritual figures throughout history. Moses, the man chosen to lead a nation, was not without his flaws. In fact, he had a speech impediment he could barely speak. And yet, the universe chose him to deliver the most important message in history. How absurd is that? The universe picked a man who could hardly speak to be its voice. And why? Because Moses, unlike the self-sufficient ones, knew he couldn't do it alone. He was broken, and in that brokenness, he became the perfect instrument for something far beyond himself. Consider David, the small shepherd boy, overlooked by his own family, considered weak, too insignificant to be anything of consequence. And yet, it was precisely this David, the one who was damaged in the eyes of society, who became the great king. Why? Because David never forgot where he came from. He never forgot his smallness, his vulnerability. Even when he wore a crown, he remembered that he was just a shepherd boy, picked up by the universe and used for something greater. And then there was Paul, a murderer, a man who had hunted down and killed the very people whose cause he would later champion. Imagine the weight of that guilt, that knowledge that you destroyed the lives of those you now seek to save. And yet, it was this very awareness of his own capacity for evil, of his own brokenness, that made him such a powerful teacher. He understood something that few others did, that grace doesn't come to the perfect. It comes to the broken too. Those who have seen the darkness and returned, transformed, ready to be used. This is the paradox of life. Transformation does not come from perfecting ourselves, from fixing our flaws. It comes from embracing them, from allowing our damage to be part of the story. The very thing we think disqualifies us is what qualifies us most. Our brokenness is not a flaw, but the crack through which grace flows. It is in the moments of our deepest pain, our greatest failures, our most profound losses, that we find our true strength. Because it is only when we let go of the illusion of control, when we stop fighting against what we cannot change, that we allow something greater to work through us. Your damage, your wounds, are not a sign that you are unworthy of being used by the universe. They are a sign that you are exactly who the universe is looking for. The broken ones, the ones who have been to the edge and back, are the ones who can hear the call of something greater than themselves. They are the ones who can say, I am not enough, but I trust that something greater than myself will carry me through. And so, your transformation begins not when you fix yourself, but when you accept that you don't need fixing. When you stop fighting against your damage, when you embrace it as part of who you are, you become open. And in that openness, you become a vessel for something greater to work through you. Let me know your thoughts on this part. Once approved, I'll continue to the next. Imagine for a moment that your life is a river. The current is always moving, always flowing, carrying you toward an unknown but inevitable destination. You can fight it, you can resist, trying desperately to control the direction of the flow. Or you can surrender to it, trust in the rhythm of the water, and let the river take you exactly where you need to go. This is the great paradox of brokenness. The more we fight against our damage, the more we resist the flow of life, the more we find ourselves caught in a cycle of suffering. But the moment we accept our cracks, our imperfections, the moment we stop trying to patch ourselves up and pretend we have it all together, we open ourselves to the flow of life. And in that flow, everything we need is already waiting for us. The universe doesn't need us to be perfect. It doesn't need us to have it all figured out. What it needs is our willingness to show up as we are, cracks and all. It needs us to trust that even in our brokenness, we are exactly where we need to be. Because life, in all its mystery and wonder, is not something we need to fix. It is something we need to live. And we live it most fully when we stop trying to control it and simply allow ourselves to be part of it. The cracks in your character, the damage you've experienced, are not burdens to bear, they are openings. Openings through which grace flows, through which the universe can work its magic. It is through those cracks that the light enters, and it is in that light that you find your true self. You are not defined by your brokenness. You are defined by how you choose to live with it. Alan Watts often spoke of the flow of life, of how we are not separate from it, but a part of it, like waves rising and falling with the rhythm of the ocean. The moment we stop trying to resist the current, the moment we stop trying to force life into a shape that fits our narrow expectations, we begin to feel the beauty of the flow that carries us not just through the good times, but through the bad as well. Because life is not about avoiding hardship or pain. It is about embracing it, knowing that it too is part of the dance. When we embrace our brokenness, we stop seeing ourselves as fractured beings struggling to be fixed. We stop seeing life as a series of obstacles to overcome, and we start seeing it as a dance to be experienced. There is no finish line. There is no perfect self waiting to be achieved. There is only the flow of life. And the moment you let go of the need to control it, you realize that it has always been guiding you. The universe does not ask for perfection. It asks for presence. It asks for openness. It asks for you to show up, to be real, to be vulnerable, to trust that even in your brokenness, you are exactly what it needs. When you stop pretending to be something you are not, when you stop fighting against the flow, you become part of the rhythm. And in that rhythm, you discover that everything you've been searching for was never outside of you. It was always within. So, let yourself be cracked open. Let the light enter. Let the river carry you. Because in the end, it's not about becoming perfect. It's about becoming open. Open to the flow. Open to the dance. Open to the mystery of life unfolding exactly as it should. Your brokenness is not a curse. It is the very thing that makes you real. And in your realness, you become the perfect vessel for life to work through you. This concludes the full script. Let me know if you would like any revisions or additions, or if you are ready to finalize it.